I think it is a lot better than that, isn't it? Good afternoon. Welcome, House Ways and Means members and Senate Finance members. Going to hear a little bit about our audits that we ordered earlier in 2024. Appreciate you being here. I know Matt Taylor will get us started off in a moment, but before he does, I know we're from Chairman Huffstedler, but Chairman Williamson, would you open us up in a word of prayer, please, sir?
Happy to, Mr. Chairman. Bow with me, please. Father God, thank you for the gift of this day, Lord, the day that you've made. Thank you for the blessings of the good spirit of camaraderie that's gone on these first 7 days, Lord. We just pray that you would continue to bless, guide us, and keep us. Bless our families, bless those that work here, and bless all the work we're trying to do. May it be pleasing in your sight. For in Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Mr. Chairman, pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, Chairman Blackman, and it's great to be here and great to have a co-meeting with the hardest working committee over there in the House. I was especially excited about the 10-bill rule you put in this year over there. I didn't get home the last 5 weekends last year trying to handle all those, so I'm optimistic for this session. And I know a lot of them were great bills, and some of them were yours, and we're glad we got them passed out over there. We were way behind as a state some years ago in evaluating these things. They put them in 3 buckets. We were in the worst bucket. I think we've at least moved up to the second bucket, according to the Pew Charitable Trust and some of those, in evaluating these things and doing our job for the taxpayers. And we look forward to hearing from the experts. And I'm especially glad you're chairing this meeting for us.
Well, thank you, Chairman. We appreciate all your hard work. We're trying to send you 1 or 2 less bills this year. How about that? Isn't it make things easier for you after crossover? Where's Mr. Taylor? We have him already up front. Okay. Well, for all intents and purposes, we're going to let you guide us through all the different audits that y'all ran and who did them, and let them weigh in, and then we'll I guess beep in if we have any questions from the members. All right. Thank you so very much.
Chairman Huffstetler and members for having us here today. I'm Matt Taylor from the Department of Audits, but we also have researchers from the 3 universities that actually completed these reports here today as well. Let's see. I'm just going to start with a quick overview of the state law that guides these reports. This is the 3rd year for the reports. The first year was 22 after the 21 passage of Senate Bill 6. That law allows the chairs to request up to 5 reports each. The reports must contain the net change in economic activity, state revenue, state expenditures, and the public benefit, if any. And then last year, Senate Bill 366 was passed. That was effective January 1 of 25. Now chairs may request up to 6 reports each. There are also automatic reviews of provisions that are going to sunset as long as they have a tax expenditure, a cost of at least $20 million. In addition to the information that's been included in the reports, they will also discuss if the purpose of the provision is met. They'll consider any ancillary impacts and comparison to other states. The bill also requires the Department of Audits to publish the list of topics on our website in May or April, as soon as we get the list, and it allows written comments from interested parties to be submitted, and we pass those on to the researchers to consider for their analysis. So I wanted to note the roles of the contractors in the department. So the law requires that the work be performed by contractors. We had an RFP a few years ago, and contracts were awarded to 3 universities. That's Georgia Southern, Georgia State, and the University of Georgia. It's the researchers at these institutions that perform the analysis, and they write the reports. The Department of Audits, we assign the projects, we collect comments from interested parties. We worked with the contractors to develop a general outline for the reports. We review the drafts and provide comments, and then we create 1-page summaries. So this is the list of requests that we received in 24. You see we had 8 reviews, 5 from the House and 3 from the Senate. These include income tax credits, income tax exclusions, a premium tax abatement, and several sales tax exemptions. So I was going to quickly describe these as quickly as I can. Starting with the bank tax credit. This is a credit that is intended to fully offset certain taxes levied on banks by cities and counties. So state law allows local governments to assess an annual tax and a separate tax on gross receipts, and this is basically 100% offset of that. The next one is a coin-operated amusement machine sales tax exemption, or COAM. This is a sales tax exemption on gameplay. COAM includes coin-operated games like pinball machines, jukeboxes, if they still exist. But the study speaks more to Class B machines that allow for non-cash rewards. These are the types of machines you may see in some retail establishments, people playing. Georgia sells licenses for these games already and receives 13% of the net revenue from them. The third is construction services. Construction is one of many services not taxed in Georgia under Georgia law. As you know, Georgia generally taxes goods and taxes a much smaller list of services. But construction services is included in the annual tax expenditure report, and a request was made for this to be included. The fourth one, global intangible low taxed income exclusion. This one is a little more complicated, I think, than the others. It's a type of income. It was created as part of the federal tax bill in 2017. It's related to foreign earnings of multinational corporations, and it has been excluded from taxable income in Georgia since it was created. Let's see, the fifth one, insurance premium tax abatement. This is allows insurance companies to lower the tax rate from the 2.25% base. It's 2.25% of premiums. They can lower that based on investing assets in Georgia instruments. And there's the amounts there, how much they can reduce the rate. Then we have the jet fuel sales tax exemption. It exempts the purchase of jet fuel from state sales tax. Natural gas sales tax exemption. This allows utilities that purchase natural gas for the manufacture of electricity. They're not taxed on those purchases. And then finally, the professional, scientific, and technical services sales tax exemption. This is like construction. This is a broad service category that is not taxed in Georgia. You can see some of the examples here: legal services, accounting, engineering. So before getting into the numbers for each incentive, I wanted to briefly describe the type of information that can be found in the reports. A large portion of each report focuses on the economic impact. So researchers typically use software called M-Plan to report things like jobs, labor income, the value added, and economic output. The reports do include, we sometimes hear people talk about the ripple effect. So it includes the impact on the direct beneficiary of the incentive, but also the impacts on suppliers and employees. An important point in these reports is always the but-for analysis. So not all activity within an industry is associated with a tax incentive, and the researchers attempt to determine what portion of activity is due to the incentive specifically. So there's some limitations to economic impact analysis that I think should be considered. Not every incentive that's reviewed has a sole or even a primary purpose of economic development. So we reviewed the grocery sales tax exemption, and that's generally not created for the purpose that is measured in the reports. And the reports due in 2025, as I mentioned, the researchers will be noting if the incentive is accomplishing its purpose. You may know this, that the purpose is not always clear in the law, so there'll be some interpretation there. Another limitation is that it measures economic and fiscal activity in a really set period. And so it doesn't consider things like the state's reputation or long-term decisions that may be made by a sector. So there will be a couple of examples of these in the reports this year that need to be considered. So I will get to the numbers. So I'm going to discuss COAM separately, but 7 of the 8 incentives are listed here and on the next few slides. I'll talk about the jobs, the value added to the state economy, and then the state revenue generated from the activity, and some other considerations that go beyond those results. So this slide shows the jobs and the cost per job. we use the net foregone revenue in that second column. That is the amount of revenue foregone offset by any revenue generated from the economic activity, taxes on that economic activity. You'll see that the jet fuel and the bank tax credit are listed at 0. And that's because the researchers determined that in the period of review, the business activity would not have been different in the absence of the incentive. So for jet fuel, the number of flights would not have been impacted. I also wanted to mention something about the insurance premium tax abatement results. So this is limited to the results. The results are limited to the abatement's impact on premiums, or basically if without the abatement, the gross premiums collected would be lower. The researchers attempted but were unable to determine how the incentive influenced investment decisions. And the purpose of this is to get them to invest in Georgia instruments. And they were unable to measure that. They attempted, they can speak to that more than I can, but they could not get reliable data to make a determination on that. So to the extent that the incentive does incentivize investment in Georgia, the impact may be greater than what's shown in the report. Okay, this slide shows the value added, which is the impact on the state's economy. The zeros here are for the same reason I noted above. Basically, the but-for was 0. Obviously, banking and aviation contribute a great deal to the state economy, but the researchers found that the contribution would have occurred in the absence of this incentives. The economic growth per dollar on the right side is essentially a way to show an economic ROI. So basically, how much does the state economy increase given $1 in net foregone revenue? This next slide is the fiscal ROI. Basically, how much state revenue is generated by the activity attributed to the provision. Obviously, all of these are quite low. Remember that not all provisions are specifically created for the purpose of economic development. The first two on this list, are not taxed at all. The foregone revenue isn't really a reduction based on a provision. It's just been a long-standing choice to not tax that particular activity here in Georgia. So there are some other information in the reports that I thought were important to consider that I want to go over beyond the in-plan results. The first two on this slide are services that are not taxed in Georgia. Most states do not tax these services. Researchers noted a couple of other things that you can consider payment for services similar to labor, which is subject to income tax. So you're paying someone for a service, you're paying basically for labor. And in professional services, many professional services are being provided to other businesses and could be considered a business input into some other type of product that is taxed already. For the premium tax abatement, in the comments, the industry noted a direct correlation between the abatement and premium levels. And for the global intangible low tax income exclusion, this was interesting in that in the absence of this exclusion, it was not expected that Georgia would collect any additional revenue, that the income would be shifted to other states that provide an exclusion or a better treatment than Georgia. And therefore there would not be any additional revenue to collect. The jet fuel exemption, they noted that this likely results in slightly lower airfares. Also noted that the in-plan analysis cannot account for longer term impacts, that airlines will ultimately make decisions about routes and cargo in the long run based on costs, and sales tax is one of those costs. For the natural gas sales tax exemption, the state has a fuel cost recovery rider that should result in any savings from the exemption being passed directly to the customer. Or conversely, if utilities pay more for the fuel, then customers will pay more on their bills. And finally, the bank tax credit, similar to the jet fuel exemption, that they noted the in-plan limitation on a long-term analysis, which the credit does lower costs, and that is a a factor in the long run, bank location decisions. So finally, I want to talk about the COAM that I left out earlier. The analysis for COAM is a little bit different than the others. Make sure I'm on the right slide. So there is no sales tax on COAM gameplay, but the state does receive revenue from the industry. It sells licenses and it receives a share of the net revenue, which is the
Mr. Taylor, I got a couple questions, but maybe before we lead into the coin operator.
Yeah, that's a good place to
All
start.
right, if it would, start with Chairman Martin first, number 27.
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation. Go back a few slides to I guess the first one with the airlines. You said that your analysis said that they wouldn't change any flights. I'm sorry.
Let me get the researchers up here. They'll
Okay.
do a better job.
No, that's fine. I mean, I don't doubt it would change any flights. My question on that is, did we check about what other places, for instance, I mean, Delta's a big player in Atlanta, where else they hub, if they pay tax on jet fuel there, because I know there are load factors that go with fuel. I mean, was that, I want to ask you to get into the details of that because that's not for here today, but were those things taken into consideration?
You want to come up here?
Because I know in the past that has been on tax of international flights and how much fuel is loaded, how much is burned over U.S. airspace, how much is burned over international, because federal excise tax is not due on jet fuel that's burned in international
Right.
waters, et cetera. So my only question is, was that taken into consideration as to where else they might fuel you? In other words, if it was taxable in Georgia, might they not fuel so much, and then when they landed in Colorado, if it's not taxable out there, they'd buy more fuel. Therefore, there'd be less other economic activity goes on. Just, yes or no, was it taken into consideration? Because we'll get down to the details of the numbers. That's more than I'm sure the chair wants to indulge at this point.
Yes. My name's Nicholas Warner. I work for the Fiscal Research Center. And I think the most important thing to think about in terms of your question is the time scale. We looked at a period when jet fuel was taxed, and we just didn't see much shifting away from fueling in Georgia. But over a long time period, if it were taxed here, we can imagine the airlines looking for opportunities to fuel in other airports.
But you did look at other.
We did, yes.
Fair enough. And if I may, one additional follow-up, because I think important what you said, most all of these things, if we charge, is it not true, if we charge tax on them, that tax is going to roll through the business and probably cost the customer. I mean, it's the customer more. I mean, yours was perfect in the natural gas area that the power plants, generating, they have a direct energy pass through. I mean, that's just, if we started charging tax on nat gas that's used to generate electricity, it's tantamount to us doing a rate increase.
With natural gas, it does appear that way with the cost rider.
And the same thing, is it not true that if we did that on services and contractors, that we would in fact be doing that and stacking tax much as they do value added tax, and you have one subcontractor paying this subcontractor who's paying another, you could stack the taxes if you were charging on multiple services.
Yes.
Like we don't charge tax
Yes.
we don't
Yes.
charge tax on goods in process at this point.
Correct. That was a point I was trying to make, especially with the profession.
Exactly.
But yes.
And the last one, if I would, is, and tell me if this is true or not. When do we charge sales tax when someone is putting asphalt on a road, a state road out there? Do we charge contractors tax on that asphalt today? I believe we do.
I do not know the answer to that question.
I believe we do. I don't think we can charge it on federal projects because federal projects
You cannot, right.
are not taxable. But I believe it's not true that we actually charge state sales tax on asphalt,
On the materials.
on the materials.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, it could be aggregated asphalt.
Right.
And I we wonder sometimes why we don't have enough transportation money. So we charge ourselves tax and then we don't have enough money to do that. So just to bring that up, ultimately the people pay the tax. Thank you.
Yes.
You sure that's your last question?
Well, are we going to break for Chairman Smyre's presentation? A serious
I
question.
know there are a number of people that want to attend, and we won't hold that against anyone if they need to, of course. I don't need to call on Chairman Hufstedler, but I believe he wanted to.
Yeah, and when you look at these numbers, I don't think anybody's advocating that we do these. I'm not, but I think it is information we need. Because you look at states like Florida and North Carolina's broadened their sales tax out. You've got South Dakota, and I know their governor's leaving to be Homeland Security, but she has no income tax up there. She's got a very broad sales tax. So it gets to be a philosophical issue. You look at the first two items, it's close to $6 billion. And the chairman's question, yeah, it does add cost to it, but if they're not paying income taxes, it reduces cost. And so that's the kind of stuff we need to look at and say, where do we think our tax structure should be? And we can't have that discussion if we don't know what the numbers are. So, I think these add up to around, I believe Chairman Albers over here had 7 billion and something total. And, and it's a significant amount of money that, the state may someday want to say, do we want to have a broader sales tax like other states do and a lower income tax, or do we want to stay where we're at? And I think that's the reason to look at some of these numbers, not necessarily say this is what we're going to do. I'm not interested in raising revenue, but as all of you know, we like to look at our income taxes and our property taxes and see what we can do to keep them low.
We don't have anything else lit up there, Matt, if you want to go ahead.
All right. Let's see. So we're the COAM sales tax exemption. So I was saying there is no sales tax on gameplay, but the state does receive revenue from this industry through selling licenses, master and location licenses, and a 13% share of net revenue, which is the gross revenue minus the non-cash payouts to the winners of these games. The researchers used an either-or scenario instead of just adding sales tax to the existing model. So it was more either the state applies a sales tax to the gross revenue, which is done in some states, or operating under the current model. They found that sales tax would have generated about 203 million in FY24. Under the current model, if the state had been receiving 13% of net revenue for the entire year, the revenue collected would have been about $10 million less. Percentage-wise, that's fairly close. The researchers noted that a sales tax model would have additional enforcement costs and may have lower compliance in the current model, in which the lottery corporation is connected to all the Class B machines. And they also noted that the current model provides funding directly for education benefiting pre-K and Hope, which has an economic impact in the longer run. That's not measured in the report. That was the eighth of the 8 incentives. This last slide just what in the world? Just has contact information. It has wanted to let y'all know the Department of Audits is a legislative agency. If you did not know that, we produce a fair amount of information that's relevant to you as a member of this committee or other committees. We have a legislative resources page. If you go to our department page at the very top, there is a link for legislators, and we have quite a bit of resources for you there that you may find useful. And will answer any questions that you might have.
Chairman Cowser, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your notes, you indicated that most other southeastern states do charge sales tax for play on those coin-operated machines. Did you look in other parts of the country to see what percentage the state would get compared to the master licensee or the location licensee?
I'll let the Georgia Southern researchers answer that question. I don't have the details and of the states across the nation. I don't even, was it most southeastern states? Okay. You want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. I'm Ben McCain with Georgia Southern University and the Center for Business Analytics and Economic Research. What we looked only at the southeastern states specifically. There was not quite as much consistent nationwide information. So realistically, Georgia's system stood out as being as having a net benefit over what some of the other states were doing in the area.
I attended a conference of the National Conference of Legislators from Gaming States a couple of years back, and there was a presentation from Illinois, and they divide theirs 1/3 to the master licensee, 1/3 to the location, and 1/3 to the state, which is almost triple what our 13% is. I just didn't know where other states fell.
Like I said, we kept it very narrow to the southeastern states, because there's also with Illinois specific, there's also a lot of within the literature, there's a break between those that offer actual gaming and those that do the coin operated machines that require a level of skill.
Thank you.
You want to reengage, Chairman?
Yeah. Thank you. I want to talk about these numbers because I think most people don't understand the numbers in COAM. And we talk about 13%, which is really 4% of the gross. So let's take a lottery ticket. When we sell it, we're supposed to get 28 cents on it. I think that number may have gone down a penny or two, up and down. We should be getting 28 cents of the gross sale. So $1, we should get 28 cents on. The COAMs are different. First, they take the gross out and change it to a net, and the net's 30%. So you've already lost 70 cents. And then we were getting 10% of the net, the 30%. So we're getting 3%. So 28 cents on a lottery ticket, 3 cents on a COAM dollar. Now with the legislation going up to 13%, 13% of 30% comes out to be 4 cents. So we did get this much improvement. We also said we're going to start handing out cash, which we weren't going to do. My point is, if we sell one of these and get 4 cents and we sell a lottery ticket and get 28 cents, we're making 7 times the money on a lottery ticket. And if we cannibalize the lottery by selling more of these, the Hope Scholarship Fund is not going to do well. It's going to lose money. So I think we probably want to follow this up with whoever is the best to do that study and say, is this having an impact on lottery sales? Is it more money or is it less money? I hope people follow me on the math there. But again, you're getting 4 cents off of a COAM dollar sale and you're getting 28 cents off of a lottery ticket sale. That's a huge difference. And we want to not do anything to hurt our lottery ticket sales and our scholarship fund.
Chairman Albers?
Thank you, Chairman. First, Matt, thank you for the great work that you and Greg and the team have done, as well as our 3 universities. You know, background history for some of the folks that are newer to this process. About 8 years ago, we hosted a study committee in the Senate for the purpose of looking at how we compared to other states. And Chairman Hufstetter mentioned that we were ranked about the worst as far as measuring the effectiveness of our tax credits. And from that, the output became Senate Bill 6, which we passed a few years ago, which got to us measuring these very important tax credits, which I think is valuable. And it's also been the posture to sunset those different ones every 5 years at a purpose to reevaluate them. Each one of us are fiduciaries. Just looking at the list today, Chairman Hufstetter mentioned, is $7.3 billion. Some of those are costing up to $200,000 per job. So us as being folks that sit on these 2 committees which drive tax policy for the state, we have to think about that for a moment. We are taking money from other people. We are keeping our income tax at a certain level in order to subsidize those at that point. So we have to think long and hard. Are we going to forcibly take money from some person or some group in order to prop up someone else if it's costing us anywhere from $90, $100, $200,000 per job? $7.3 billion will basically eliminate the Georgia income tax. This is only a small sampling of what we have out there, folks. Other things, just history. When we originally looked at the jet fuel tax many years ago, even when Governor Deal was still in office, it was a concern they would no longer fuel here and they would drive up the prices in Georgia. But what we found was it was cheaper to fly from Birmingham, Alabama through Atlanta to go to Chicago than it was to just start in Atlanta and go to Chicago. So how could the prices be different? So it's market pricing. They're going to charge more in an area that can charge more. So what we have to do as fiduciaries and as legislators is take the emotion out of this and make these mathematical equations be true. And I know that most everyone here has been on the same focus, which has been mentioned time and time again. How do we lower the income tax, which helps out everybody, and take this more to a consumption tax? Chairman Martin and I work together on a lot of important tax issues. He's right. If we put a consumption tax in certain areas, it will increase the cost for that person. But then it truly is a consumption tax. It should. That's the way it works. You pay more for what you do and what you get. So I think today, I appreciate the great work again that Matt and Greg Griffin and the audit team has done. But I know there's a lot of interest in the room and people are supporting their industry, and we appreciate that. But let's make sure we focus on the numbers and the bottom line that impacts all of Georgians, not just a very small sliver.
I don't see anybody else with any questions here. Matt, did you have any other presenters that wanted to weigh in today?
No, not.
No, well, we
Okay,
got
good.
through that relatively quickly. I thought we'd be here a while. All right. Well, Mr. Chairman, I don't know, do you have anything else good for the good of the order? No, I just follow up, thank and echo Chairman Albers and Chairman Hufstedler. We appreciate the work that y'all are doing over in audits. I know we're still working our way through some of these things, trying to figure out, how to best handle them. But this was our constitutional, by law requirement to meet ahead of the end of this month in order to review these. And we may take deeper dives as we move forward, but we certainly appreciate the work that y'all have done. And Chairman Albers, I know you spearheaded this and had the foresight to kind of take these deeper dives and look at these things. So thank you for doing that. And Chairman Hufstedler, it's always a pleasure to be with you. Like I said, we'll try to send you a bill or two less. How many we get over there this past year? You got about 30 out, didn't you?
I think so.
We'll keep you honest. But thank you all for being here today. Does anybody have anything further? All right, we stand adjourned.